Yes.
Hey there, Groovesters and Groove Stars. Ridgely here with another Groove Growth program. Super excited about this individual that we're about to hear from, who is a mega entrepreneur, founder of the School of Bots, and I'm happy to call her a dear friend. So, Natasha, I'm so happy that you're here with us, and I can't wait to hear about your entrepreneurial journey. Tell us, how did all this get started? How did you get the bug? What happened? Give us the dope.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, first off, thank you so much for having me, and excited for everybody who's listening in. So I got started fairly young, not younger now than, you're seeing like 12, 14, 16-year-old people start their first online business. But I started right in my first semester of college. So at the tail end of high school, I had racked up $200,000 of scholarships. I was like, I'm not going to have any student loan debt, going into college. And I had decided to do this program where essentially I was going to visit 3 different colleges in 3 different countries. And I was happy that that would make me feel like I was learning things outside of just like the standard 4-year kind of university experience. Because I knew I wanted to be a business owner of some kind or investor, but I just didn't quite know yet like what that path was going to look like. So that was my mindset towards the tail end of my senior year at high school. And then, right at that point, I read 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. And that completely shifted everything for me, because up until that point, I had thought, well, I want to be an entrepreneur, but maybe I'll go to like Silicon Valley and do tech startup stuff or something like that. I thought that was the environment I wanted to be in. And then I read the 4-Hour Workweek. I was like, wow, this is what I want, right? I want to work 4 hours a week. I want to, run these online businesses. Of course, I was super naive at the time as well, and forgot that Tim Ferriss had a 10 million plus a year business when he had written, all about how that worked. So completely dismissed that, right? And was like, well, I'm going to start my first business, and I want to be traveling around and go to these places he's talking about and really build a cool lifestyle as well, that serves me. So that was my mindset going into it. About a semester into college, I got a little bit fed up with the environment. Everyone's partying and, doing their thing. And so at that point, chatbots, Facebook Messenger automation had just launched in 2016. And so this was now in 2017, early 2017, when I was like, I want to start a marketing agency. I think that that's a good business model for me to begin with. It's pretty, low resources needed to be put in. So low barrier to start. And I'm going to do something that's brand new that most companies don't have yet. And so my co-founder at the time, boyfriend, now husband, we decided to go into this together. So I said, I'm going to leave college. I'm going to, go on a leave of absence, totally drop out, and start this whole thing with you. So we not only started the business right after that, we started living together, and we moved away, and we moved outside of the country. And so we were doing kind of the digital nomad thing, where every single month we'd live kind of in a different country, in a different place. Oh my gosh, so much going on, right? We're trying to figure out our lives plus business and everything. But the cool thing was we were able to host meetups wherever we were traveling. We found clients at co-working spaces, and just got connected to all these different people around the world. And it was interesting to see how people were reacting to this new technology that we were specifically focused on. So it was great for that perspective. And in that first year, we went from zero, living in the shittiest, smallest places. Like we live in over 30 different apartments in 7 different countries, trying to figure this all out. And in the first 12 months, we had our first, $100,000 of revenue without knowing anything about what we were doing. So it was a great milestone to be like, okay, this makes sense. This seems to be working. Let's like keep at it. And so long story short, over the last couple of years, we've had the opportunity to serve the leading information product businesses in the world, which I am so, so grateful, like Amy Porterfield, Jenna Kutcher, Russell Brunson, all of these people who I was learning from and listening to their podcasts and their audiobooks and all this at the beginning. And now we are still a marketing agency, and we also train businesses to implement the systems that we have created over the years, which is specifically messaging automation on Instagram, DM, Messenger, WhatsApp, and SMS. So that's kind of the long story short of how I ended up getting into this, and kind of how my first business has panned out so far.
I love that. Well, before we go any further, what was the biggest takeaway that you got from living in 7 different countries? Because I get this question a lot because I've lived in a lot of countries too, but I'm wondering, what was your biggest takeaway from that experience?
Yeah, I think funny enough, I would say like my personal takeaway and then something that's valuable. Like my personal takeaway was, wow, like how people perceive America in the US. It was really fascinating how, like, first of all, American music is so much more prevalent and like entertainment than you might think it is. I'm sure people expect, like, yeah, the music that's super popular here right now, the movies that are coming out, all of that. I'm sure it's influencing the rest of the world, but like it is the thing everywhere. Like you go into supermarkets, you go into gas stations, you go into hotels, and they're all playing American music. They've got American movies showing in the theaters, etc. So that was really fascinating for me, because then I realized how much that also trickles into social media, and that at the end of the day, instead of these different cultures kind of forming like they have for thousands of years for us based on geographical location, now it's all about these internet online communities where you have people from all over the world who feel like they're all a part of this one culture, this one community online, instead of feeling as connected to their geographical location and, where they're based, kind of shaping their interests, what businesses they're pursuing, what jobs they're going after, what they're buying online. Everything is now influenced by American entertainment, because we so prevalently, have a hold over social media. But then secondly, just like how consumer behavior works, how people communicate and chat online, like the language they use and the etiquette and just the behavior of how people interact. It's all like so similar across all the cultures. So that I think was my biggest takeaway, because I was looking at it from the lens of, well, how do we as a business help companies that are in the places that we're visiting serve their local audiences? And there really weren't very many differences other than the jokes and the language itself. But apart from that slang and the jokes and the language, it's all like so similar now that everybody's on the same online devices, on the same platforms, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. And did you have a particular country that was a favorite for you?
I actually don't know if I could pick a favorite. So I'm half Japanese, half Mexican, and 2 of the countries we went to were Japan and Mexico. So I really loved doing that more as an adult, because I had gone a lot as a kid. But I do have to say that probably Thailand would be my favorite, because we lived there for 4 months, longer than anywhere else. And the food, the culture, just everything about it, I really loved. And kind of, it was my first introduction to spicy food as well. So that's a big takeaway for me, because now I feel like I can't go a meal like every few days at least without having some super hot sauce, on there. So that was probably one of my favorite parts, is like evolving my taste and my palate, if you will, by doing that.
Yeah, I love Thailand. I had a company in Bangkok for a while, was down there all the time.
Oh, that's
And
awesome.
they're the kindest people. I don't know if you know this about Thailand, but it is one of the very few countries on earth that has never been conquered by a different group. And as a result, that's everybody's smiling all the time. If you smile at somebody in Thailand, they go like this, and they smile right back at you. They're so friendly. The land of pleasant breezes and 1,000 smiles is what they call
Wow,
it.
I did not know that, but that makes a lot of sense, because I was always curious how, because I don't know the proper term for it, but when we were there, I believe their king, or like the main leader of the kingdom, because Thailand's technically a kingdom, had passed away. So we went to like a funeral kind of like celebration of life thing in a movie theater, actually, because it was all across the country. And it was really fascinating for us, because we just didn't understand enough at the time, I think. But that makes a lot of sense, like how everything is set up in the country, from like police force to legal, that it has not been conquered.
Yeah, King Bhumipol you're talking about. His nephew worked for me in Thailand initially. So we had a lot of opportunity to hang out with some very interesting people that had their own tigers and stuff like that.
Yeah. Oh my
So
gosh, so cool.
back to your journey. So tell me, if you were to try to summarize, what are the 2 or 3 things that most stand out as being the characteristics needed to be a successful entrepreneur?
Yeah. The first one, which has been my, I think this year I feel, and naturally, right, as you evolve every year, but this year I feel the strongest and finally understanding that impulse control, I think, is one of the biggest traits of success. And that comes down to everything. I mean, I look at now every single activity, every action that I take every day as, am I acting on an impulse because I'm stressed out or fearful or really think this needs to get done right now? Or can I step back and actually slot this for when it needs to be done? And now there's strategies to manage that, like task management or batching your activities or setting certain themes for certain days or times of the day, right? But at the end of the day, it really does all come down to, can you control your frantic, squirrel brain that wants to do a gazillion things because you're stressed out or because you think that needs to happen? And can you instead really organize your day? And I think once you can get to the point of as close to mastery as you can, I think there will always be those impulses and those urges. So it's just about constantly being in a good relationship with your impulse control. Then that to me feels like a big breakthrough point for a lot of people, because it allows you to like fully have control over what it is you're doing, which then allows you to obviously be doing the right actions to make revenue, to build your business, et cetera. So that'd be the first one.
I think that's really powerful. And it goes right along with the 80-20 rule, right? 20% of your activity give you 80% of the results. Can you focus? Jim Rohn likes to say, focus on the 6 things that matter. Everything else doesn't matter. I think there's many ways of saying that, but it's that ability to focus in on what is going to actually move the needle, as opposed to being a hamster in a wheel, running and running and running. That was one. Okay, what else?
100% agreed with you there. The second one would be understanding, and more specifically, not just like team leadership and team communication and dynamics, but the concept of enlarging your team members, meaning that whenever you're interacting with somebody, really making them feel like, wow, they're doing a great job, or kind of highlighting like what it is that they've contributed. That's been a huge thing that I would do and just didn't really realize over the years. And this year, I realized that that's something that I'm really good at. And when I see other leaders that we work with, clients of ours, et cetera, and I see how good they are at not just, hyping up their team just but because they're recognizing those people and then tying it back to their company values, or just the values of like what they believe in as an individual, that is the best way, right, for you to get people on board, and more importantly, just be pleasant to work with. Because at the end of the day, even if you're paying a vendor to work with you, they're not going to work with you for very long if you're an asshole or curt to them. And if they do, then they're probably desperate for money, and you probably don't want them handling parts of your business anyways, because that means they're not treating it like it was their business. They're doing it because they're doing it out of fear, desperation, etc. So that would be one of the 2, other things that I've learned, especially this year, coming down to enlarging people.
I think that's really important. I have what I call a life's too short list. And the life's too short list is simply, hey, if you're a jerk or you're whatever, I'm simply not interested in working with you, like at all. Why would I? Life is short. I love my work. I love what I do. I love communicating and connecting with people. Why would I want to do that with people who are doofuses? No. So talk to us. I love to ask this question, and most people kind of quickly get to it. One big setback that you've experienced in your relatively short business career so far, and what did you learn from it?
Yeah, I would say actually when we paused, so at the beginning of this year, we actually paused a lot of our business and focused on doing a couple of things in the crypto space, Web3, NFTs, et cetera. So we had created a few new business models there. And I think one of the things looking back now, because we still had that going, and then we ended up kind of reviving / like setting a new mission for Schoolbots and everything that we were doing, because I think now, like, I took 6 months off of doing business in that business model, which I had done every day, 16-hour days, right, for 5 years. And so taking that time back, realizing like all these different pieces from those 2 traits that we just talked about, right? Impulse control and all of that, to really just more so like maturing as a business owner, I realized that some of the biggest setbacks or things that I had done just came down to me not seeking mentorship. early enough. And I think it can feel cliche sometimes to be like, you've got to get help from people who are ahead of you, right? But I think oftentimes people are so embarrassed about where they're at and they think they should be in a better place. And I feel that most people feel that way, regardless of the level of success that you feel or that you're at. You're like, well, I feel like I should be a little bit more ahead than I am right now. So I don't want to seek help yet because I think, once I get to a certain point, then I'll ask for help or then I'll ask for support. And while that's not like a very specific one moment setback, there was a lot of little moments that kind of led to that. And I didn't seek out mentorship like I should have. And then now I am seeking out mentorship in so many ways and realizing like how much that has, literally 5, 10x our business like over the last couple of months, simply because I'm allowing myself to evolve instead of like saying, oh, I'll evolve once I get to this certain point, right? It's kind of a paradox in terms of seeking help.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second, because I think your point is very well taken. There are so many people who could benefit in such a huge way from talking to those who have been before them. And for whatever reason, there's this stigma of, oh no, maybe I shouldn't, maybe whatever. I was lucky. I got really lucky very early because I had two great teachers, one in high school and one in college, that really showed me, wow, when you connect with the right person. And then I started seeking it out, and then eventually ended up being with Jim Rohn for multiple years, which was an amazing experience for me, and helped me set this trajectory of being in the personal development, personal growth field.
Yeah.
What do you say to somebody now about seeking mentors? What counsel would you give them?
Yeah, I think the unique thing about the time we live in now is that you don't even need permission or actual input from the people who you want to be mentored by. You can just go learn from them online. And I think that at the end of the day, there's a couple of things, right? The first process of finding mentors, I think, begins with simple Google searches, YouTube searches, podcast searches. Like, find people who are talking about what it is that you're wanting to work on. And even if they're not a huge, big, influencer name, they probably know a couple of things that are ahead of you. And so being able to listen to them on an ongoing basis and giving them kind of an opportunity, a 14 to 30-day window where you listen to that person every day and you're able to glean a lot from their experience, what they're sharing, etc. I would say picking a mentor for each area of your life/business is also important, and then following that same process there. And then the second part of that is like, once you get to the point where you're like, cool, I'm ready to pay $1,000, $5,000, $20,000, et cetera, for mentorship, for being a part of a group, then I think that's when things like masterminds or even just paying somebody for their time, an hour of their time, even if they're like, I don't offer consulting, whatever, you're like, well, how much would I have to pay you to get on a call for an hour and just ask you my questions? I think that above all else helps you accelerate. But I think that doing that doesn't make sense before you have actually done a little bit of research to listen to people and then say, I want to get advice from this person that I just watched a YouTube video from. Let me reach out to them.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So how much time do you now spend on personal and or professional development?
Yeah. So right now I'm at probably like 1 to 2 hours a day. And that is because it's weaved into everything else that I'm doing. So granted, there are certain skill sets, like, for example, if I'm going through a course on how to learn better or how to do something more technical or what have you, then obviously I'm going to sit down on my computer and actually be going through that intently. But oftentimes, anytime I'm doing dishes, I'm getting ready in the morning because that'll take at least 15 minutes. I'm going on a walk outside or force myself to do a walk. I'm preparing food. Like, literally anytime I sneak, if it's going to be more than 2 minutes of time that I have, kind of open sound, if you will, then I'll pop on an audiobook that I'm working through or a course that I'm working through, and I'll listen to that. So altogether, that ends up being about 2 hours a day, which I've calculated and kind of intently know what that looks like, because I'm able to weave it into the rest of my day as well and kind of multitask with that.
And so basically it's interesting because those people who live where there's traffic would call it setting up a rolling university, right? Jim Rohn used to talk about that all the time.
Yeah.
Make your car a rolling university. Hit the tape, man. You don't need to be listening to all that junk.
Mhm.
Make your car, and it's so true. What we put in is what is going to come out, and therefore
Yes.
what we're looking at, what we're reading, what we're listening to, what we're watching, who we're hanging out with. And that's where I wanted to go next. What do you think of the power of masterminding and finding seekers, like-minded seekers? How important do you think that is?
Yeah. And to answer this, I actually like a point you made right now, which made me think one of the biggest changes for me has been in this concept of like the more ideas you're putting in, as long as obviously it's not conflicting and all over the place, but the more ideas you put in to your brain, the more ideas you're going to get out as well. And I truly believe that. Initially, when I first read that quote, and I think I saw it on someone's Instagram, right? Like years ago, I was like, oh, that's cool. And then I didn't really take it seriously. And then the last couple of years, it's been like, wow, if I can just listen to an audiobook, even just 5 minutes a day, or if it's an hour, right? If we're commuting, driving somewhere, then that makes a big difference in the new ideas that I have to solve the business problems that I have right now and to actually approach the things that we're creating. So to that point, it's not only education and listening, so just consuming that comes from that, but I think the thing I love most about masterminding is that it's a combination of both. You get to consume and create in the same environment, in a place where everybody has agreed that these are kind of the rules, or more so the agreements of this environment. And the interesting thing too about masterminds is that they all have their own culture and community. So I think it's helpful to be a part of multiple groups, whether it's a mastermind you're paying $20,000 a year for, or maybe it's just a forum or a membership that you're a part of that's $20 a month, right? Whatever level you're kind of at right now to get help in that specific area. Understanding that culture and community and having multiple of those, just like you have multiple mentors to fit the certain areas that you're focused on growing, I think is the most important thing above all. Because people like to say, well, what's the best book I should read right now? Or what mastermind do you recommend that I join? And it's really all about your current needs and knowing that that's going to shift, but also recognizing you have multiple needs and being able to really fulfill delivering on each of those with different groups.
Yeah, 100%. I know I'm in 4 masterminds and I get invited a lot to join other ones. And I finally said to myself, you are not joining any more masterminds at the moment. 4 is enough. Okay, that's just the way it is. So to a point you were making, what books to read, etc. If you were to recommend three books that you would want to say to a budding entrepreneur or even more seasoned entrepreneurs, what would be the ones you would recommend that you believe would help people the most in their entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah. So if you are in the online business space of any kind, right, where you're looking to move into it, because I'd imagine that's most people listening, right? You guys are creating funnels, you're figuring out how to generate leads online. Then I think these 3 books, even if it's a little bit, like if it goes over your head a little bit the first time, really study these books, because I have now at this point come to the point of like, I listen to these at least once a month, and then I'll always revisit fully with my full attention, not just multitasking. So the first one would be Expert Secrets by Russell Brunson. And I'm sure there's people who are like, well, I don't really want to be the face of a company or an influencer or anything of that kind. But that book has really amazing insights to understand storytelling, which if you can understand storytelling allows you to be one of the best leaders you possibly can be, and just like getting your point across to literally anybody you interact with. I think that's super, super important. It also gives you something that most businesses lack, which is that whole like brand personality, that like feel that when you go to their social media, when you look at their ads, when you go to their website, like how does that brand really make you feel? And if it's just like dull, empty, kind of gray feeling, well, then that book can help a lot with all of that as well. So I think it's really powerful for those things. Now, the second one I would say is Influence by Robert Cialdini. That is probably my favorite book of all time because it's so relevant to the work that I personally do. So again, that one as well, like he's talking specifically in the context of business and marketing, if you will, but I mean, it applies to literally every interaction you're going to have ever with anybody. And the third one is more of like an entrepreneur CEO one. It's called The Great CEO Within. And I like this one because it's a very tactical and modern book that literally rapid fires you through everything you need to know to handle all parts of your life and business. Everything from what bank accounts and things should you have personally as you continue to grow your business, all the way to how to manage meetings. And in fact, if you didn't even want to buy the book, the author, I don't know how to pronounce his last name. I think it's Matt Mochary or Matt Mochary. And he has the entire book and all the resources online. So if you just Google The Great CEO Within and then Matt, Mochary, then you can find a Google Doc where he has all the resources he mentions. And it's great because he's just linking out to the best practices for project management, for finances, for managing meetings, for managing people. It's just a great quick read that has a lot of like instant delivery on all the different things you can implement.
Awesome. How about something or some things that are on your bucket list?
I've had a longish bucket list since I became an entrepreneur, and I was like, I want to do all these crazy things. I want to speak 7 languages. I want to climb Mount Everest, etc. And I would still love to do all those things. But I think the most immediate for me would probably be to enter into some kind of dance competition. So I would love to do a salsa competition and prepare for that for like 12 months. That's really the biggest one. And then the second would be actually around singing as well, because that's something I really want to get back into. And I guess the third really just comes down to like, it's not even a bucket list. It's just like, create. I'm just constantly looking at the life vision, that Kyle, my husband, and I are creating. And a lot of that has to do with like, how do we continue to grow our businesses and how do we continue to invest into other businesses and create kind of our like business, incubator, if you will. That's kind of my biggest like business bucket list item is like, how do we create a business incubator where we have teams and people who can manage any kind of business that we might want to create or be able to scale. So yeah, both on the personal and business side, that's kind of what I'm looking at.
I love it. I love it. And so tell us your vision for School of Bots moving forward. What's the vision?
Yeah, the vision has actually not changed too much from the beginning. But when I said that we had kind of rethought how we were approaching everything, a lot of it comes down to impulse control, right? We're not like chasing a new campaign to run 2 months from now, which unfortunately I see even the biggest online businesses run into these issues where like last minute they want to do a cash grab or they want to do, this sale or they want to put out this product. So the biggest thing for us is staying focused. And what this looks like long term is that we want to continue to be that like one-stop shop for anybody who wants to learn this new skill, which is the evolution of communication on Instagram, WhatsApp, Messenger, SMS, any future messaging platforms, and be able to come to us and learn the skill to either get hired, implement it for your own business, or have us support you in implementing that and be an extension of your team. And so ultimately, we're still in the very beginning of this. We thought 5 years ago, hey, for sure, in 5 years, everybody's going to know how to use this stuff. But then you consider the fact that most businesses don't even have proper funnels set up or email marketing systems, even optimized websites. And so I think we're a bit ways away from it being like a core pillar of every business, but especially for everybody who's listening, who is currently an online business owner or an online marketer and works with businesses online, understanding how this stuff works and getting something set up just allows you to continue to jump on each new platform that comes out with messaging automation capabilities.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously, everyone, you will see the link down below so you can go find out a lot more about what Natasha Takahashi does with School of Bots or Natasha Willis now, I guess now, right?
Yeah.
Which one are you going by now? The old.
Yeah. Yeah. So
before you were married.
I legally changed my middle name to my old last name so that I could keep it in there. Because my dad was an only child. He passed away when I was 7. And then no one else really in our family is going to carry the name because I've got a sister. So, we would both take husbands' last names. So I ended up keeping it. And also for SEO purposes, because I've done hundreds of interviews and things with my old last name. So I wanted to make it easy for people to find me newly. So
There you go. Now you got both. I love that.
Exactly.
Final advice, one golden nugget, thought, or anything you would want to say to all those people who are looking to build something online and make their voices heard. What would you want to tell them?
Yes. And this kind of goes back to impulse control, but just choose. Choose the one thing that you want to become a master at, even if you're like, well, I don't want to be known for affiliate marketing. I don't want to be known for this e commerce store. That's okay. But in order for you to evolve past that point and have whatever dream business you want to create, you just have to choose one. I think people often say you just start, right? Well, then starting's not clear enough. You got to pick one thing that you want to pursue, even if you're not 100% sure about it. But it's just about starting to carve that path, right? Because if you never get started, then you always kind of have this blank canvas and you're not sure where to go. And that makes sense because you're trying to make decisions based on theory instead of in 3 months from now, you could have tried out 3 different business models and know for sure, I don't want to do this. For sure, I don't want to do this. For sure, I don't want to do this. Let me give this a try. And one of them will eventually stick.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And I think that it's one of the toughest lessons that online marketers have to really learn is learn this one thing before you shiny penny to the next shiny penny to the next shiny penny. And you end up knowing not a lot about a lot of things, which doesn't really help us. Natasha, thank you so very much for sharing your wisdom and expertise and thoughts and lovely, beautiful smile with all of us in the group community. We deeply appreciate it. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me, Ridgely. And thank you to everybody who has stayed and watched until the end. Super appreciate all of you. And I'm happy to be a resource as well. So feel free to reach out if you have any questions about your online business journey or about chatbot marketing, which is what I specialize in. And ultimately, just happy to have had the opportunity to share with you guys.
And the link to schoolofbots.co is right there. Hit it, go check it out and see what else you can learn. All right, Groupsters, Group Stars, Ridgely here, and I'll catch you on the next Group Growth Program. Bye for now.